Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi everyone. We are from group Zealous Planters. This is our presentation of our activity 8. Okay, our group member is our leader Wan Muhammad Amir bin Wan Adnan. Next is Aiman Hakim Tajur Rahim. Next is Muhammad Fahmi and Manush Kumar, Amiru Amma, and lastly me, Faik Wakudin bin Mali. Okay, we will proceed with our presentation.
Next slide.
Okay, the first issue is hire purchase agreement during MCO, moratorium. Next. Okay, basically, this issue is involving hire purchase law, 1967. Next. Okay, the fact of the issue, I will explain it. Next. In early 2020, the first coronavirus disease was reported in Wuhan province, and the virus started to spread globally. And the spreading of COVID-19 disease is so big as most of other countries are reporting their first case. And within the March of 2020, the COVID-19 was declared as a global pandemic, and most of the countries are starting to stop the spread of COVID-19 disease. Most of the countries are implementing lockdown as their approach to stop the COVID-19 disease. The Malaysia government are applying movement control order known as MCO in the mid of March 2020. MCO is a lockdown that bans people from public gathering. Public gathering is the most banned thing in MCO, and that is why school, works, and any outdoor activity that have more than 6 people gather at the same spot will close. During MCO, people are banned from going to work unless the people from essential industries such as industrial and manufacturing, construction, service, trade and distribution, and also plantation activity. Many people are unable to go to work, and this causes an issue during MCO as the private sector worker and people who are working for themselves are losing their source of income. The people who are not going to work has their own responsibility, such as paying a bill and loans. The loans are the main issue as they're making loan in purchasing car. In Malaysia, the most common way to buy a car is by entering hire purchase agreement. Hire purchase agreement is an agreement that have the appellant, which is the person who buys the car, and the respondent, which is the financier who are making hire purchase to the person who want to buy the car. In this agreement, there are monthly installments that were fabricated in the hire purchase agreement, and the person need to pay the monthly installment every month. If the person are unable to pay the monthly installment, the car will be taken back by the financier. Next. This issue is if the person are unable to pay the monthly installment, that's the goods could be taken back. During MCO, people are stressed as they have to stay at home and they also have responsibility to fulfill such as payment and more. That is why this issue is interesting because the effect of moratorium implementation in Malaysia, most of the Malaysia people does not feel burdened with the many responsibility, as we know the economic growth during lockdown is not good. Okay, next. Okay, I will give the recommendation presentation to Aiman. Can you proceed, Aiman?
Okay, thank you, Ame. So I will tell about the recommendation for this issue. Firstly, the government has came out with financial aid program known as Bantuan Prihatin Nasional (BPN), where people receiving financial aids from the government to survive during this struggling time. Implementation of moratorium where banks delay in the payment of debts or obligations. Although the monthly payment were not paid as the moratorium were implemented, the hire purchase agreement is still enforceable. The results of applying moratorium, people does not need to pay the monthly installment, but the right for the bank on the ownership of goods still applied. This kind of action will help to reduce people's burden during this struggling situation. Besides, government also can make a deal with the banks to expand the moratorium period for a long term and give the banks any guarantee to make sure they do not facing loss. Another way government can do by remove all the terms and conditions for EPF contributor. EPF is standing for Employee Provident Fund. This EPF can use their money. This EPF contributor can use their money from first account, where they can apply. This can be applied if banks do not want to extend their moratorium. The implementation of moratorium in Bantuan Perhatian Nasional is the best solution the government has made in helping Malaysian people financially. So, for the next slide is I will
All right.
proceed to Fahmi.
Thank you, Aiman Hakim, for the good presentation. So now I'm going to continue for telling you about the second issue for this presentation. Okay, the second issue that we bring this for this presentation is I found at the internet that JAKIM has breached the duty of care to protect Muslim consumers in guaranteeing the distribution of halal meat in the country. Next slide, please. Okay, the law that involved in this case is law of tort under negligence. Okay, the fact of this case. The New Straits Times recently reported that a meat cartel has bring non-certified meat into Malaysia and passing it as halal certified. It is believed that the cartel imports meat from non-halal certified slaughterhouses in countries such as Brazil, Bolivia, Canada, Colombia, Spain, and Mexico. However, the only countries that have been certified by the Malaysian authorities for the import of halal meat are Australia, Argentina, Brazil, India, South Africa, Pakistan, Japan, New Zealand, and the United States, with imports handled by the Malaysia Islamic Development Department and Veterinary Service Department. So that is the only countries that certified by JAKIM before. And then it is understood that the cartel issues has been in operation for more than 40 years. Cartel is an enterprise that combine together. Okay, this issue was really given a big impact on Muslim consumers as it is something that related to the religion where Muslim only can eat halal meat. So that is a fact. So the Malaysia Consultative Council (MPM) has called for a major reshuffling of the Islamic Development Department (JAKIM) over its perceived failure to protect Muslim consumers in guaranteeing the distribution of halal meat in the country. Next slide, please. The Council's Perform Management and Delivery Unit Pemandu Komit Chairman Tun Hanif Omar said the government should consider reactivating the Malaysia Halal Council, means that need to reactivate the new council which it was abolished during the previous administration. Hanif also said that the department, JAKIM, should relieve itself from its role in handling the issuance of halal certificates, mean handling the process to give the halal certificate for the enterprise. And then he's saying that JAKIM should face actions for its negligence due to the action that they did. Later he said MHM, which the organization that they wanna organize new, should set up a special task force consisting of various government agencies, namely officials from the Islamic Religious Affairs Division under the Prime Minister Department. He said the council will also submit its recommendation and seek the wisdom of the Conference of Rulers to compel the establishment of a special court for corruption and stiffer penalties to offender, which would include heavy community service and even stripping them of citizenship and banishment from the country. This is the judgment that they asked to be in the court. This case is still under the investigation of police and legal authorities. So I'm going to pass the next presentation to Manoj Kumar for telling the recommendation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Fahmi. Can you guys hear me?
Sure.
Right. Okay. Now I would like to continue the presentation of this second issue towards the recommendation. Right. Next slide, please. All right. Okay, the issue which was stated earlier, whether dependent negligence to the failure to protect Muslim consumers in guaranteeing the distribution of halal meat in the country. So this case is referred under the law of torts of negligence. The definition of negligence is a person's careless action or inaction that caused others to suffer damage may give rise to tort of negligence. Negligence is established when three elements are fulfilled. Firstly, there is duty of care on the part of defendant. Secondly, this duty is breached by the defendant. And thirdly, the breach results in some damage. To prove the tort of negligence in the court, the claimant is required to demonstrate the fact of the defendant was fulfilling the three elements of negligence. Then the court could give the judgment in the side of the claimant. So in this case, the claimant could say that the Islamic Development Department, which is JAKIM, if the defendant has a legal duty of care to ensure and inspect carefully distribution of meat in Malaysia. They need to ensure the distributor followed the criteria to get the halal certificate, and they need to determine whether the meat is eligible to get the halal certificate or not. Next. So, however, the defendant breaches the duty of care by doing an unreasonable action where they do not perform their responsibility to protect Muslim consumers in guaranteeing the distribution of halal meat in the country. As a consequence, this would be resulting in the damage to the Muslim consumers as they accidentally add non-halal meat, which is wrong from the religious side of the Muslim religion. Therefore, the judge could hold the defendant was liable for his mistake and could be punished under the law of tort under negligence. The defendant is subject to action to pay the penalties, do heavy community service, and even worse, could be stripped of citizenship and banishment from the country. The court could rule in the favor of the claimant. The claimant will win the case. So that's all for us for this today's presentation. Thank you.